Claire,
Galen.
it's been a minute.
Oh my gosh. I mean, not in our lives.
Not in our life. I saw you last Friday.
Right. In the life of a podcast.
In the life of a podcast, I haven't seen you in this little rectangle on my computer since 2020.
Wait, but is that true? I feel like we've only done...
We've only done live shows together.
Wow.
In the time since.
So much of my life in 2020 was lived exactly like with little books stacked up with the mic and like looking at you on a little screen and sort of sweating uncomfortably in a small room.
Hello and welcome to the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen Druk, and we've got a very special guest with us today, former 538 Politics podcaster, staff writer at The New Yorker, and dear friend Clare Malone. Claire, welcome to the GD Politics Podcast.
Hi, Galen.
I'm so happy to have you. We have a lot to talk about today, but first I want to say that, well, the last time listeners heard from you was at a live show that we did at the Comedy Cellar back in April, and excitingly, we've got another live show coming up at the end of the month, again at the Comedy Cellar in New York City, with our partner in shenanigans, Nate Silver. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. I miss the medium of like smart conversation. So whatever the venue, whether it be over the computer or in person, which is always so much more fun because, as you and I have pointed out, Nate loves a live show.
Nate loves a live show.
It's just fun. It's just like fun to actually like talk to you guys. You know, shoot the shit in front of a lot of people. But
I think the Comedy Cellar is a great place to do this because, as I like to say, politics can be pretty joyless, but we don't have to be. And so, like, we can talk about serious stuff while also enjoying each other's company and playing games and engaging with the audience. We have a pretty interesting track record of picking notable dates to do live shows. I think our first ever live show was the day that Ted Cruz dropped out of the 2016 Republican primary and Trump became the de facto nominee in Washington,
You're right. We
DC.
were in DC. We do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a vision of the hotel room where we were.
We were all crowded, like watching.
Yeah.
Cruz's concession speech or something in a hotel room. We had a live show the day of the Brexit vote
in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, and we decided, sort of in an impromptu manner, to turn the microphones over to the crowd and ask if anyone in the audience was British. And some woman stood up and was like, "Hey, I'm British, and like, here's some context for Brexit." We also 2016 was so crazy. We also had a live show in Chicago the day that the pussy grabbing tape came out.
I remember that.
Which in some ways felt like it was going to be the end of the 2016 election, and then it absolutely wasn't.
Wow, I have measured my life in live shows with you. Watch out, September 29th.
Okay, yeah. So
what's going to happen?
We don't yet know what is going to happen on September 29th, but if past is prologue, it will be something notable. We at least know that the government will shut down at midnight on September 30th if Democrats and Republicans don't come to some agreement. So at the very least, we have that.
But we promise not, I'm going to say this in advance. We promise not to make it a show about the government shutdown.
Yeah.
Because
we're going to have a lot to discuss. I mean, we're in the midst of a New York City mayoral race.
Yeah, that'll be hot.
I think it was at the last live show where Zohran Mamdani was first mentioned on this podcast. And I mean, it was April. That primary was in June. And June. We barely even knew Zohran Mamdani's name then.
Isn't that, I think that speaks well to like the appropriate way that New York City's politics cycles are timed. Like we've all become used to the interminable slog of like 3-year-long presidential campaigns. But like the fact that in April, people were like, who is this guy? And then 2 months later, they were like, this guy's going to be the mayor, really is kind of how politics used to be and maybe should be. I mean, that's kind of how British or European politics was for a really long time. Maybe it's changing a little bit.
6-week-long campaigns. What was it, like Canada had like 8 weeks or something? I'm probably getting the exact number wrong. But
if you're Canadian or British, I'm sure you'll say something to us and correct us.
Anyway, so go get your tickets to see me, Claire, and Nate live at the Comedy Cellar
in New York City.
29th.
Clearly, if there's a Comedy Cellar in your city and you are not in New York City,
we're not going to be. We're not going to be there. Okay, so go to gdpolitics.com. You will be able to find tickets there. It's also pinned on my Twitter account. So there are plenty of places where you can find it. I'll also put the link in the show notes for this. In any case, come join us. It's going to be fun. Shall we get down to business?
Let's do it. My bun is off center. This is the problem with video podcasting. I'm like, that's the other thing. Video podcasting felt like such a novelty in 2020. We were like, why are we putting this on the internet? No one's going to look at it. And now all people want to do is stare at faces. That's actually a generational thing I do not understand. I'm like, why wouldn't you just want to like put in your earphones and like do something else while you listen to this?
Yeah, the weird thing for me about video podcasting is that you can't, while we're recording, you can't, I don't think, turn off your own view without turning your camera off for everybody else. Whereas oftentimes when I'm having a Zoom meeting, I'm like, I don't want to see myself.
You can turn yourself off, yeah.
Yeah, you can perceive yourself the entire time you're recording a podcast. But by the way, your bun looks perfectly on point.
Thank you. I fixed it a little bit.
Okay. Let's get down to business.
Okay.
At the time that we're recording this, which is to pull back the curtain on September 11th, the country is still reeling from the assassination of Charlie Kirk the day prior. We've also got a bunch of new polling in the New York City mayoral race, which we just talked about a little bit. The first excerpt from Kamala Harris's book just dropped. Democrats are, as ever, debating their political strategy and pushing for the release of the Epstein files. The Murdoch family succession drama seems to have been resolved, which is at the nexus of exactly what you cover at the New Yorker, Claire, which is politics and media. Speaking of politics and media, before we get to any of those other things I mentioned, you have a new piece out in the New Yorker the day that folks are listening to this, Monday.
That's right. Yeah. Monday, if you get your print subscription, which everyone should subscribe to.
Yeah, of course.
Don't do that, Galen. Yes, I cover media and politics now at the magazine, and I have a piece out this week. It's a profile of a woman named Jessica Reed Krause who goes by House in Habit on Substack and Instagram. And I think she's a really interesting figure. She started as kind of a mom blogger, lifestyle, interiors blogger, and based out of Orange County. And for many years, she sort of had this niche fame with mothers, sort of affluent mothers. And she kind of got canceled in 2020 and then sort of reemerged as this.
Why? What'd she get canceled for?
Her husband, this is all, we go into all of this in the piece, but her husband liked a transphobic post by Candace Owens, who I've also profiled for the New Yorker. Look it up, people. You can read. You can spend your afternoon reading.
You've done some pretty solid profiles in the time that you have been away from 538.
Thank you. And anyway, her husband had in 2020 liked a transphobic post on Instagram by Candace Owens, and another influencer in Jessica Reed Krause's sphere sort of surfaced this, and so her kind of her views, which had been evolving behind the scenes and becoming more and more sort of anti-woke, kind of spilled out, and so that was the reason for her cancellation. But kind of in the aftermath, she became a chronicler of all these trials. So it started with Free Britney, and then she covered the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, she covered the Johnny Depp trial, and on both of those trials, got kind of well known for taking almost the contrarian point of view. She was a kind of almost like a Ghislaine Maxwell was the scapegoat. Johnny Depp is being unjustly persecuted. Sort of these reactionary or sort of the anti-establishment views of these things. And during 2024, she started following Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and his campaign got a lot of access to it, then got a lot...
Who you've also profiled.
Who I've also profiled. And
because of Clare Malone, we know that RFK Jr. found a roadkill bear on the side of the road, put it in his car, brought it to New York City, and dumped it in Central Park. Claire, you're the reason the public has that information.
I have to say, I am.
I hope that's like number one on your resume.
First line of my obituary.
New Yorker writer Clare Malone, responsible for the in-depth reporting on RFK Jr.'s journey with roadkill.
Anyway, so she kind of got this like really unprecedented access to him and to sort of Trump world, but was writing about things from this almost like gossipy, soft focus view of politics. Really has like, she's a very aesthetic person. She kind of has not a classic Republican aesthetic. This is a profile actually for the style issue of the New Yorker. And it's sort of about how she, kind of brought her audience of moms along with her for this sort of red-pilled ride. I think she's a really fascinating figure. Some people might have heard of her. Check it out. Jessica Reed Krause, House in Habit. I've got a profile of her in the issue of the New Yorker. And I think it's online for you people who don't subscribe to the print New Yorker, which you totally should. I think it'll be online on Tuesday. And
the MAHA movement, we've talked a little bit about it on this podcast, is itself a very interesting collection of strange bedfellows.
Totally.
You know, there are people who have long time worried about the health of American children and our food supply and all of that stuff, who have been liberal for a long time, who now find an advocate in the White House. But it gets complicated quickly.
Very much so. I mean, and it's sort of amazing to think that MAHA, the movement, is literally basically a year old. I mean, in August, Bobby Kennedy dropped out of the race or suspended his campaign and endorsed Trump. And almost immediately they kind of branded it, I think really savvily, as MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. And it did this interesting thing of knitting these two movements together. And like Kennedy's coalition was kind of like crunchy left people who were like so left-wing, so establishmentarian that they kind of gelled with people on the right. I think he is a charismatic figure in his own way, you know, and I think it's a powerful movement because, as I like to say, a lot of people are a little bit MAHA. Like many Americans are worried about PFAS, right? Many Americans are worried about their Teflon pans and why so many people are getting, you know, young people are getting cancer. Like there's a lot of worry. And I think that movement has very mixed issues and issue reception. I mean, like you'll talk to people who are nutrition scientists and they'll say like, actually, he's bringing up a lot of, he being Bobby Kennedy, the health secretary, is bringing up a lot of things we've been talking about for a long time. Now they're next to really troubling anti-vaccine or vaccine skeptical stances. But yeah, I think MAHA is, you know, sort of it's organic too. I mean, organic both in the literal and abstract. But like people, it speaks to people's worries.
Yeah, we had the dean of the School of Public Health at Washington University in St. Louis on the podcast, and one of the themes that we talked about is how MAHA fits into a long-running Trump trend that he is quite adept at naming the problem and asking provocative questions, but then coming to controversial and self-defeating solutions. So in that MAHA report where he says, you know, Americans are unhealthy, we are overweight, children are being diagnosed with all of these kinds of diseases, there's not enough, people aren't getting enough socialization or physical activity, like all of these things, the public health community is like, absolutely.
Common sense, yes. What's interesting about it is that it's, you know, a lot of American politics in the past 5 years, post-pandemic, have felt really personal. Like it started during the pandemic with schools, right? The politics around schools, teachers' unions, but everything was about my kids, your kids, right? Very emotional. And I think one of the interesting things about watching the MAHA movement mature over the past year is how it feels so personal to so many people. A lot of its big figures are big figures on Instagram, right? Like, you know, they are targeting a lot of moms, a lot of moms in ways that don't feel explicitly political. They feel like, hey, you should bake this bread without preservatives for your family because it's good for them. And, you know, we should worry about what your kid is consuming, which, by the way, I'm a mom. I worry about that. It targets, you know, MAHA has also sort of played into, like, I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I like immediately checked to see what was in my shampoo. You know, when you get pregnant, you realize like you become aware of like, well, what's in my environment, you know? And
it's a little bit of the Joe Rogan effect for women.
Totally. Yes, absolutely. And I think so MAHA kind of there was fertile ground already, particularly with women who worry about what they're consuming, who worry about what their kids are consuming. And it just sort of, it all feeds together. I think it's a really fascinating and quite powerful movement that's here to stay.
Folks should definitely read the piece. We're going to move on to a more somber topic here, which is Charlie Kirk's assassination. At the moment that we're recording, we don't have the details about his murderer. I hope that that's changed by the time that folks are hearing this and that the person is brought to justice, but a single shot to the neck of a political activist and media figure while engaging in debate on a college campus, the context to a certain extent speaks for itself. I think we all have a lot of thoughts about this. It's a very fraught moment. How are you grappling with it?
I mean, I think I saw it yesterday afternoon pretty early and like texted my editor right away, like someone shot Charlie Kirk. I think all of these, I think it's a huge deal. On just like morally reprehensible, murder, obviously, is morally reprehensible. Political assassination in particular, which has become quite common in this country, is reprehensible. But I think I kind of felt a certain degree of shock because, and I think maybe it took him, this incident, to really sell how influential he really has become. I remember him when it was kind of like, what is Turning Point? There's some of these like younger activists, but like, you know, to go back to MAHA, like some of the biggest, Alex Clark, who's a big MAHA influencer, like came out of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, almost like talent scouting program, right? Where they would find these young conservatives and like bring them up. Like I feel like Charlie Kirk is really responsible for nurturing and talent scouting a lot of these conservative media figures that you now know. Candace Owens, you know, another person who Charlie Kirk was like a really seminal person in her come up, right? Like I think he was so young, 31, right? But had a really outsized influence. So I'm, you know, frankly, like feeling pretty unnerved that this, you know, there was the assassinations in Minnesota over the summer, obviously the assassination attempts during the campaign. Like it's really unnerving. That was my first instinct. And then I would say the thing I've been sort of marinating on over the past, you know, overnight is just what a big deal this is going to continue to be. I mean, Charlie Kirk was quite close to Trump, to the Trump family, to many figures in the conservative movement. And, you know, he's sort of I think he will take on this martyr status almost in the way that, like, you know, so many conservatives point back to like Andrew Breitbart as being this like mythical, larger than like life figure. But I think that, you know, Trump made the statement from the White House that this part really caught my eye, where he said, and I'm quoting here, my administration, this is talking about Kirk's death, my administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. I linger over that statement because I'm curious what that means to Trump. And again, we're recording this on Thursday. Maybe something will have become clear, but it's obvious that this is a seismic event for the conservative movement outside the tragedy of the death of someone. It is going to have, I think, real time political ramifications and potentially policy ramifications for Trump.
You know, I'll say, to echo what you said, very unnerving. Claire, you met me when I could still be unnerved by a lot of things that happened in the news cycle, and we have plenty of memories, but over a decade, I oftentimes feel like I've become emotionally inured to a lot of what happens in politics. But I found myself, after seeing this and frankly seeing it on video.
Seeing it, yes, yeah.
It on video and close up.
Yeah.
And Twitter sort of decided that was also the right time to show me videos of the murder of Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian refugee who was murdered in North Carolina, also close up. I mean, I was sitting in a park sort of processing all of this, really just shaken and sort of upset, worried about the country. I mean, this all goes without saying, but like, we have to live, if we're going to be a free society, in a place where people feel free to speak their piece, whether it's controversial or not. And that kind of has to be the rule of the road, full stop. And I don't want to live in a country where people are afraid to say controversial things. Certainly not afraid for their safety to say controversial things. And I don't want anyone to feel like they can't speak out, right, left, whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, I also, without meaning to, saw the close-up video that was quite disturbing. And it just was, I mean, I think I had like a physical reaction to it, like kind of like, you know, anyway. And I think it's something that I think so many of us have been experiencing for the past couple of years on our social medias, where, you know, particularly with like, you know, the war in Gaza, you see pictures of death so much on your social media, and it is so, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just like really troubling. Like just like those images and just the way that they're all kind of circulating in this way that is.
It makes you sick.
It makes you sick, yeah.
It makes you sick. And obviously people are having very strong reactions to this, which is normal and good. You know, people should have strong negative reactions to somebody being assassinated like this in broad daylight. To echo what you said about the knock-on effects and where we go from here, we have, to the extent that politicians across the political spectrum are denouncing it in absolute terms, like we know from the research, the evidence that the best way to stop the cycle of political violence is to impress upon people in moments like this. Violence is never an acceptable form of political behavior. There are also, sadly, people who I think are taking this opportunity to say things that are unhelpful. And one thing in particular that I saw was sort of the way that Jesse Waters on Fox News was describing this as the left is at war with us. What are we going to do about it? Those are not helpful.
That's alarming.
Terms.
It's alarming
to be speaking in.
Yeah.
And I think we all rightfully worry about the lessons that people take from this.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, I'm not even sure how to put a button on this, but it's like it's like the same thing with like the Luigi Mangione thing. Even though it wasn't a political assassination, it was an ideological assassination, and obviously we all know that he was embraced for that, and you can certainly have feelings about American healthcare. I do, but many people do. But just the way that he was memed so quickly, and it is, violence is not the way that you in this country handle things, or have handled things. And I just think it's just I also had the thought yesterday of like, wow, it kind of feels like the 60s had so many political assassinations. Are we just sort of like having a re-emergence of that era, which is this really sobering thought?
Yeah. And how do people behave differently when they don't always feel safe? I mean, just even the things you have to think about, like security everywhere now, we all probably love somebody who says controversial things, and I don't want to have to like worry about, that person's safety or whatever, be they at the right, left, center, whatever. And so it's sad. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So we are going to move on. And we're going to talk about the New York City mayoral race, which I think is going to come back up at the live show. So we won't necessarily cover absolutely everything, but in the moment that we're talking, we have a spate of new polling from the New York Times Siena College, Emerson College, Quinnipiac, University of Massachusetts, really a who's who of high-quality pollsters. And the last 4 high-quality polls show, on average, that Mamdani is leading the pack by somewhere close to 20 percentage points in the most recent New York Times polling in a head-to-head matchup. If you were going to pit Cuomo against Mamdani, it is quite close. Obviously, at this moment, that's an irrelevant consideration because there are still Eric Adams is still running, Andrew Cuomo is still running, Curtis Lewa is still running, in addition to Zohran Mamdani. But that head-to-head matchup looks like 48% support for Mamdani, 44% support for Cuomo. And folks have probably heard that in an effort to try to get us closer to that reality, Trump has mulled offering Eric Adams a plum position as the U.S. ambassador to, wait for it, Saudi Arabia, which the first thing that came to my mind was like, I can't imagine anyone who would enjoy that post more than Eric Adams. Yeah, Claire, where's your head at in terms of the state of the race in our dear city?
Well, just on that Eric Adams Saudi Arabia post, as a person who has lived in the Persian Gulf, I spent my first 2 years after college living in Doha, Qatar. I can say with a lot of confidence that I genuinely think Eric Adams would like Saudi Arabia. Like, it is, He
doesn't drink, but he loves to party.
Exactly. And also, I include myself in this as someone who used to live there. But, like, you're not entirely normal if you're like, you know what? I want to go live in, like, the hottest place on earth for a while.
Yeah.
It's just like, makes sense. It makes sense.
So
it's not Turkey.
Maybe by the time folks are listening to this, it's become a 3-person race, which still wouldn't be helpful to Cuomo because Curtis Lewa at the moment gets more support than Eric Adams anyway. But maybe we can talk about what's motivating this race, both by the numbers and from our experience living in New York.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,